I've been very blessed in my life. I've had people that have given me good advice through the years. And to be honest, I've had people give me bad advice too, but I try to think about the ones that gave me the good advice. I think of my dad. Whenever I was 19 years old, I went to my dad and I said, "Dad, I have found this young lady that I would like to marry, and I would like to propose, and I need to get an engagement ring." And so my dad told me, he said, "Well, son," he said, "in my early years," he said, "I worked at a jewelry store," and he said, I know jewelry very well. He said, "So if you would trust me to do it, let me go and find a proper engagement ring for you." And he said, "I can even look at her finger without measuring it, and I'll know what size to get for her." And so I trusted my dad, and he went and got the engagement ring. Whenever I gave it to Lorraine, it fit her finger perfectly, and so he knew exactly what he was talking about. I think about later in my life where we'd had 2 children, and the doctor had told us that having a third one might be an issue. And I was talking to my mom, and I said, "Well, Mom," I said, I think Lorraine's going to have her tubes tied." And she said, "Now, son," she said, "that would be your wife's decision, not your decision." And so I said, "I understand." And I told Lorraine, I said, "You have my full support, whatever you want to do, and you make the decision yourself." Good insight on my mom's part. I think about my wife. She gives me great advice. Usually, when I tell somebody that that I'll do a certain thing, or that they tell me that they're going to do a certain thing, I just take it that they're going to live up to their word. And my wife reminds me. She said, "Not everybody thinks the way you do." She said, "Just because they told you they were going to do something, they may not remember, or maybe you need to give them a word of encouragement." And so she gives me advice that I need to communicate better and more thoroughly with people, and that has certainly worked to my advantage many times. And then last on that, I think of my son. When he was about 12 years old, my young brother was 15 years old. I have a brother that is only 3 years older than my son. And my son, my 12-year-old son, came to me years ago, and he said, "Dad," he said, "you may not realize this." He said, "but you treat your younger brother like he's your son. You don't treat him like a brother." And he said, "In my opinion," he said, "since he's 15 now, you need to start treating him like a brother and not a son." And that was wisdom coming from a 12-year-old. And from that day forward, I started trying to do that. Well, my name is Richard Coleman, and I'm the pastor at Shepherd Church of the Nazarene in Lexington, South Carolina. And it's great to be able to spend just a few moments with you today. Been looking in the Bible in 1 Kings. And we see where King Solomon has died and his son Rehoboam has become king. Rehoboam, as a new king, has decisions that he needs to make. Well, people come to him and they say, "Rehoboam, your dad, King Solomon, as much as we liked him, he taxed us pretty heavy. Because, we wanted to build the temple and build the palace, and all of those things are built now. And we feel that you could reduce the taxes a little bit." And so Rehoboam, he goes to some older men, and he said, "I would like your advice. The people are saying they would like a tax reduction. What do you think?" And the older people say, "Well, we think that would be a great idea. If you would reduce the taxes, then the people would think highly of you and think that you were a very wise person, and they would be very loyal to you." And he said, "Well, thank you for your advice." And then he finds some younger men about his age, and he gets them together, and he said, "The people are complaining about their taxes. and they want the taxes lowered. What do you think I ought to do? And those younger men said, oh, if they're complaining about their taxes, what you need to do is you need to raise their taxes. You show them who's boss. Rehoboam thought about the two different pieces of advice that he had, and he chose the younger people that were about his age. And so he raised the taxes on the people instead of reducing the taxes. And because of that, the people revolted and they picked a different king. And so we find that in Israel's history, that the nation of Israel was torn in half. The new king, Jeroboam, he ruled the northern part of what was Israel, and Rehoboam was only king in the southern part, what was then known as Judah. We have a lot of decisions that we have to make in life. And God gave us the ability to make good decisions, to be able to look at the facts, to be able to look at how a decision would work favoring God's kingdom and advancing God's kingdom. And in addition to that, how would this decision affect my fellow man? The people around me, would it be to their benefit or would it be to their detriment? You see, it all goes back again. I know I repeat this probably too often, but it goes back to Jesus' words when he said the most important thing in life is to love God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength. So therefore, all of our decisions should be based on loving God. And then Jesus said, in addition to that, and just as important, is to love your neighbor as yourself. And so the decisions that we make, putting God first in our decision, and then putting others just as important as we are as we make that decision. And if we'll do those two things in the decisions that we make, then God will honor our decisions, and He will bless the decision and also be able to bless us. Well, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May His face shine upon you. May you truly be able to make wise decisions throughout this week. Thanks for taking the time and watching today.